It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Jane Pauley.
Back in the 70s, the Doobie Brothers took the nation by storm, and to hear them tell it, they took full advantage of the benefits of a rock star life. Turns out they still are, and they're speaking with our Jim Axelrod for the record.
Considering they've been playing this riff for half a century, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise.
Just a feeling growing as a day by day. People getting ready for the news.
But knocking the rust off never sounded so good as this band tuning up in a rehearsal hall in Burbank.
A band like ours is a little different than a lot of bands, I think.
Just alright, oh yeah. She came from somewhere back in the long ago.
The Doobie Brothers are more than a little different, selling more than 50 million albums over the last 50 years.
You can count on one hand and maybe have a few fingers left over the number of bands that have had that kind of longevity.
Right. I think we all feel pretty lucky.
Yeah.
You don't know me, but I'm your brother.
While other members have come and gone over the years, Michael McDonald, Tom Johnston, Patrick Simmons, and John McFee, the core four Doobies, are all feeling pretty fortunate to still be playing together. And not about to let the kinds of resentments that broke up other bands and threatened theirs keep them from celebrating their rock and roll Hall of Fame careers with a new tour.
I think as dinosaur bands go, we get along better than a lot of them too.
Yeah. Dinosaur bands. Ouch.
I was going to say that is a crazy term.
Yeah, I
that is
hadn't
a hell
thought
of
of
a
that
term
one.
you just coined.
I've heard it, but I
We're
didn't
going to
think
fight about that later.
Their story begins in 1970 in San Jose, California, where Johnston and Simmons met playing guitar. Jamming led to booking some gigs, which then meant they needed a name.
And then this guy said, you smoke so much weed, you should call yourselves the Doobie Brothers. We, yeah, right. That's going to fly.
Their hard-driving rock appealed to a crowd of bikers and hippies in Northern California as they reeled off a string of hits: China Grove, Black Water, Rocking Down the Highway.
All right, so these years, 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, like everything's going great.
Yeah, and it accelerated each year.
It was all anyone who's ever strapped on a guitar and chased the rock star dream could imagine, which is exactly when the trouble started.
All the obvious stuff.
Drugs, booze, women.
There really is no way for a bunch of guys in their 20s that are now having outsized success to handle all of that gracefully. Is there?
That's true. We didn't.
Co-founder Tom Johnston was the first casualty, sidelined by a bleeding ulcer as the band was on tour.
I had to leave the band, unfortunately. I mean, I'd had the ulcer since high school.
And then throw in the booze, the drugs, the
Well, yeah, it
lifestyle
just
of a rock and roll star.
Exacerbates the whole problem.
The Doobies needed to find someone fast. A few of them knew a keyboardist who was playing clubs in and around Los Angeles.
At that point, I was playing the Trojan Room in Glendale. Yeah.
You're at the Trojan Room in Glendale on a Tuesday, and by Thursday, you're playing with the Doobie Brothers?
Michael McDonald's life would never be the same, nor would the Doobie Brothers when it came time to record their next album.
I started to kind of bring in songs that were at that point, kind of, in varying degrees of being finished. Taking to the Streets was one of them.
The sound of the Doobie Brothers was shifting.
Hey, don't worry, I've been lied to.
And softening.
Were you aware that, am I changing the sound of this?
Oh yeah, hyper aware of that, and not in a good way. I felt like, oh boy, you know, I'm going to be the reason this whole thing turns into, you know, part of the.
What it turned to was platinum. Actually, their 1979 album, Minute by Minute, went triple platinum.
When you're recording minute by minute here, are you aware that this might really be huge?
I don't think you can ever predict those things. I think you can only say this is accomplishing what I had in mind as a writer or as a player.
As she rises to her apology, anybody else would surely know.
One of the tracks, What a Fool Believes, became the band's all-time biggest hit, winning a Grammy for Record of the Year.
Is anyone saying we are losing our soul of who we are, but we're so enormously successful? How do you balance this?
I balanced it by leaving. I didn't feel like musically I really belonged in that situation. Nowadays it doesn't matter, but in those days, I didn't feel like I was in the right place at the right time.
But those days are now more than 4 decades ago. These days, they've got better things to worry about.
Who's going to sing what part? What's that chord? And I don't think anybody really cares about whatever happened back then. I know I don't.
Maybe that conflict in 1976 just isn't as relevant anymore.
I can't even remember it, so it doesn't matter.
Just last week, the Doobie Brothers, minus McDonald, released their latest album, Liberté, their first in more than a decade.
Now I'm so amazed, these are the better days.
Songs not as much by artists from the 70s as in their 70s.
And at some point, John said something like, I'm thinking about, those were the better days. And I'm going, these are the better days, what we're living right now.
Right now, back together, aware of the passage of time, but grateful for the way they still have to combat it.
We're still, able to do it, and people maybe want to hear us.
Oh, they want to hear you.
And when we get up there and Pat starts Blackwater, or we jump into China Grove, or take into the streets. And all of a sudden we are 20 years old again, and we're doing what we always did,
That's magic.
It is, it is.
Gonna sing the song, go! Everybody gonna sing a little